Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Primal. When I first heard about that Genndy Tartakovsky was making a show like Primal, about a caveman and a Tyrannosaurus Rex who go on dialogue-free adventures for 5 episodes, I was instantly into the idea. But seeing it was probably one of the most rich cinematic experiences I've seen this year, and I did not get to see the theater cut. I saw what was on Adult Swim. It is intense. It is beautiful. It is very violent, visceral, scary, intense. It is a real experience. It's the closest I've seen anyone do to kind of replicating what it's like to watch a silent film for the modern era. And it doesn't really feel like that's at play at all, because you feel like you're in some like weird heavy metal magazine, not the movie, I really mean the magazine, intensely visual, beautiful trip back to prehistoric times. It is honestly kind of everything I wanted it to be when I heard about it. I wanted it to be this great, amazing experience. I feel like a lot of times with Genndy, we've had so many things that we've wanted to happen with him that haven't because of powers that be and so forth. But to have this almost be what feels like his full powers at hand, just remarkable. I mean, this shows how powerful of a filmmaker Genndy Tartakovsky is, and how smart of a filmmaker he is, and how well trained he is, but how good his storytelling can be without having any dialogue at all. There's a thing in animation, if it's a written show like written down, or a boarded show like drawn and shown to you, basically. And I'm fairly certain this is a boarded show. I know it's a boarded show since the storyboarders are credited, and it feels that way. It feels visuals first. In a way, the visuals tell the story. I mean, there's nothing else other than the sound design by Joe Valentine and the whole sound department in here, who honestly did an amazing job. They're basically the only audio that's telling the story is through them, although the visuals, honestly, you could mute this and sort of understand it. From the people who do the music, those being Tyler Bates and Johan Higginbottom, I think that's how you say his name. They really add to the storytelling and certainly the intensity of it and the realness of it, but most of it is told through visuals and intensely beautiful images. I was really blown away by this and how captivating it is and how well they structured it, because in some ways this can be just a great adventure show, much like a great action director. Genndy Tartakovsky takes on these action sequences in a way that you could just like fall into it and watch episode 4 and just watch it as its own solo adventure, but there is a real arc of the whole story. I don't know if there'd be a Blu-ray of this or whenever HBO Max comes out, because when I shot this, there wasn't an HBO Max yet, that they released the theater cut, which was Primal Tales of Savagery, and how that differs possibly from what this is, but it does have a natural story to it. It almost feels like the individual tales kind of take precedent over that, but through those tales you do learn who they are. And I thought that was smart. There is an actual real order to it. There is kind of a beginning and an end. As much as I would like more of this, I kind of feel like this is almost a whole story and you don't really need anything more. And all you really need is for more people to see this, because holy crap. In terms of actual just cinema, in terms of visual storytelling, there's certain films I see every year and I go, that is the masterpiece this year, or there are several masterpieces, or that like no one can define that, what that is. And Primal, in terms of animation of this decade, is one of the greatest kind of animated statements I've seen anyone make. There's this whole idea of animation auteurs, and very often you feel, they'll make a show, they'll make a couple shows, but they never like push the limits the way Primal does. No one's like making this grand auteur statement. Like, this is as much of kind of a big Scorsese kind of step out that an animation director has done this decade. Like, Genndy Tartakovsky pushed himself to this amazing, awesome level, and it wasn't even supposed to be this violent thing originally. I think it was just going to be a kid's thing, but it shows like how versatile he is, how good of a storyteller he is, how great of an action director he is, which I didn't really need to be reminded of, but this is kind of like showing his true talents, pushing it to a level that we always dreamed he could be at, and god damn, it's beautiful. I'll just go over the episode. The first episode is Spear and Fang. Spear is what we're supposed to call the caveman, and Fang is the Tyrannosaurus Rex. We never hear them mentioned because, there's no dialogue and stuff, but that's kind of, if you want to refer to them, that's the names that everyone's using. At the beginning, we get the origin of how they used to have families, and then they were both killed in kind of tragic incidences, how they kind of become friends. And that episode sets up the real pain that kind of brought them together, which I thought was actually really important to it because we kind of understand the stakes of this world and we understand these characters and we have a lot of soul searching. A lot of the first 2 episodes, and I've said this a lot with TV, are more so about, it should be about character development and getting you to fall in love with those characters because that's who you have to spend your time with. And episode 1 and 2, both written and storyboarded by Genndy Tartakovsky, are very much about that. And with that, you go on to 3, 4, and 5, which are all more solid adventure things. 2 kind of does both of those things, but 1, some of those things of him just looking off the cave, seeing the sun move, and like there's a moment where I'm like, is he gonna jump? Or is he having an existential crisis? Or does he know? Does he know what he's going to do? And that was a powerful moment. Because you look off into the cliff, you look off into the abyss, and you wonder, will I step off into here and kind of question my own existence, question whether I should continue to exist because his family has been taken from him? Do I want to just make that leap because what does anything matter anymore? And he kind of doesn't, but seeing him look off as the light changes is a very powerful moment. That episode, I think I really was with the character of Spear after that because I understood his trauma and I understood Fang's trauma as well as they both kind of come together. The next one, River of Snakes, is more about them, fighting over how they deal with food, how their friendship sort of works. And there's, a river of snakes, which is pretty crazy in itself. I think it kind of reconciles like how they work as a team and how they kind of adjusted to one another. I like that one as well. I think it's the first of beginning kind of that transition from going from understanding who these characters are to going to adventure episodes, which the rest of the series would be. The next one, which is maybe my least favorite, but least favorite in the way that it's still spectacularly amazing, but I still think it's my least favorite. Genndy Tartakovsky didn't write or storyboard on it at all. It wasn't that I saw the credits before. I just, in general, didn't like it as much, but I still very much liked it. It's kind of the woolly mammoth episode where they kind of kill a woolly mammoth who's older and eat him for food and stuff. That one, I like kind of the dignity of seeing that world with the woolly mammoths. I like the kind of fight and the adventure of it. Of all the episodes, it probably has the simplest plot, which you'd think something without dialogue would be more simple in terms of its storytelling, but it's interesting how the clarity of the storytelling is always there, I would say, in Primal. The thing about Primal that is interesting is how many things they're playing with at once and how well they're able to establish those things without having to fully explain them, how visually they can have cues and hints at things, and then you, as an audience member, will be able to pick up on those so easily. Probably of anything I've seen this year has more faith in the audience than I've ever seen. I mean, obviously you can't be looking at your phone or anything. It really demands your attention throughout the entire runtime. But they don't really explain like how they get from one place to another, but it kind of works in this kind of prehistoric fantasy kind of thing, which I mean, I really wasn't getting hung up on how realistic it was. I really didn't because I was having such a good time. But in this one, I did like how they did the snow effects and with the mammoths and everything like that. But it didn't feel as crazy. It didn't reach as far, maybe. I still really like it. I've actually watched some of these individually, and it's the only one I haven't, other than watching these all together. And this is the one I was maybe the least passionate about. But the next two, Terror Under the Blood Moon and Rage of the Ape-Men, were probably my two favorite. Terror Under the Blood Moon might be my favorite. It also has character designs by Bob Camp, who I believe did the Ape-Men, if I'm just guessing. I don't know if he did the Bat-Man or Man-Bat, probably, characters, but he did look like he did the Ape-Men. And that episode has so much going on. I mean, it starts with like this velociraptor sequence that you've seen in the trailer and goes from like Ape-Men hiding to man-bat people to spiders to a crazy chase at the end. I mean, in some ways, if anything, this did remind me of Fury Road in that it's pure cinema in the sense that it's coming at you with all of its intensity and its clarity and hitting you with 1,000,000 degrees. And that one, like going from one end and then having to go back, totally reminded me of Fury Road. I love that one because it has so much going on, but it's able to, you totally know the geography of that land, which is something I have to say action directors never get done perfectly, but when you do it, it makes the stakes, it makes everything feel so much more real, because it's like how you understand, where your bathroom is or, where your kitchen is. You understand the geography. That feels very real. That's something you can get into and relate to. There's more to it than that, but that's essentially the theory. Basically what they're doing with this theory is really showing that land because they're going to have something to do with it. And I love that in it. That one is directed by Don Shank and Genndy, written and storyboarded. And then Ape-Men is Brian Andrews and Genndy Tartakovsky. And that one just gets so violent and insane and has such huge shifts in it. It honestly, I think, feels maybe the most insane. I was just like, obviously I watched all these in order in a row, and I even went like, holy shit. Like, even though I bear witness to all of what this series was, there were big moments in that. The last two, the show I would say goes most like balls to the wall in terms of it's just like, you know what? We are doing this prehistoric dinosaur caveman show, and we don't give a fuck. And it's pretty clear they don't. They're just like throwing, doing the most violent imagery possible, doing the most crazy, insane action sequences. There's a jump that the dinosaur makes that doesn't even, it looks like kind of crappy when he's jumping up from the velociraptors, but I sort of like the beauty in its kind of crappiness. And I don't mean this as like, oh, it's so bad, it's good. I mean it like there's a real beauty in that jump and the way the drawings flow within one another. Like there's like just amazingness in that. And wow, just those two are just so well done. Just master action filmmaking. There's a real talent and a real beauty and a real art to that kind of thing. And Primal does it so beautifully well. It's intense. I just absolutely loved what they were doing in Primal. I think Primal is maybe one of my favorite movies of the year, and I guess it's not a movie, but since it was submitted for Best Animated Feature, fuck it. And since all y'all motherfuckers acted like Twin Peaks is a movie, I think I can do that with this. Since actually you could say, since this actually played in the theater together and did qualify for an Oscar, then technically I'm a little more right. But anyway, I love visual storytelling in cinema, and I love it when cinema can do that. And there's certain mediums like comic books and video games and all that sort of things that can do it, but there's a certain way that cinema does it that I just love. I don't know if there's a best way, and I don't really care if you want to know if there's a best way. That's stupid. Who gives a shit? But how cinema does it just sweeps me away in it. When it's able to convey things just by a look, just by an image, just by a color, just by the sun moving behind some rocks. Just having certainly this is a 12-year-old boy show, and I get that. It is a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a caveman killing a bunch of stuff. I mean, what is not to like about that on a certain level? But this kind of looks at it in a real intensely beautiful exercise of a thing, but as well as a beautiful, amazing narrative. I love Primal. I think what Primal is doing is just something that only animation could do. Primal has this just beautiful intensity, action, streamlined clarity that you just can't expect from anything. It doesn't even matter if I know these guys' names. To me, they're just Caveman and Tyrannosaurus Rex. I understand their Spear and Fang, but I don't care because that doesn't matter. What matters is they were able to reflect those emotions out of them. They were able to go on these awesome adventures. They were able to sort of have continuity, but honestly, I don't even care about that. These are just very tight, very beautiful, very amazing animated stories in the way that almost the simplicity and the beauty of it reminds me of things like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner or Tom and Jerry or something, but it's doing it in an action sense. We don't get enough what animation can do with action and other genres that aren't just comedy. And Genndy has pushed that to a level that I think maybe this might be one of his greatest works. And I love Samurai Jack and all the things, but this would definitely be up there for me. This is a statement from an auteur saying look at what I can do, but also I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it. And we don't get to see that. We don't get to see people do those things. And certainly I understand when you get to adult animation, there's that kind of overreaction to be overly violent or cursing or sexual. But this didn't feel like that way. It felt like someone who was really trying to do an epic, beautiful adventure. There's a reason Genndy Tartakovsky is considered one of the great animation directors of his time. And this pushes it to such a degree that you really cannot deny him being one of the greatest filmmakers of our time. I mean, this is as much of a shot in the arm as Fury Road was to a certain degree. But just the exercise of it, but the intensity of it, just how swept away I was by it, just I've watched it twice now, and between the times I remember it so well, there's things I've seen between it that I'm like, yeah, I guess that happened, who cares? But partly because I saw Primal and that was so good, but it is just such a beautifully amazing thing, so well drawn, so well told. I just can't stop praising it. I just love what it's doing. But I love that it has both an emotional story to it, a stakes to it, a clarity to it, and it's able to take me to this crazy intense world, but it's almost is just trying to be what cinema and animation can do and pushing that to a level that no one's maybe asking them to do right now. I think there's been a lot of talk I've seen lately of people saying like, well, who cares if something's shot beautifully because so many things are shot beautifully. What are you doing with it? And I think in a lot of ways, yes, Primal is very well animated. Yeah, maybe it is the animation masterpiece of 2019. Sure, all those things, but what it's saying for visually is, how are you able to be this beautiful, but every time you're saying a certain emotion, no shot is wasted. This might seem like the most masturbatory idea, of testosterone you can imagine, but every shot, in terms of a visual exercise, just every shot is completely important to the story, completely telling what it's going to do, completely brought back, and also showing awesome stuff, also showing like how beautiful they can draw with this. Also, who's gonna just have cavemen designed by Bob Camp out of nowhere, but it looks so fucking good? Who cares? It's not just like a break in style, but it just shows you that like Genndy loves animation. I love watching people love their medium while making something, while pushing it to a level that no one's asking it to be pushed for and blowing everyone away. Primal is just like one of the reasons I love cinema and I love movies and TV, is when you get things like this that just like evaporate everything else in its wake because it's just so fucking good. I love this thing. I can't stop watching it. I know I was late on this review, and it's honestly because I just wanted to have enough good things to fucking say about it, and I don't even think I'm done talking about it, frankly, because I'm going to keep rewatching this thing for a long time. I'm very much a fan of this in a lot of ways, but I think it's because in terms of visual storytelling, in terms of storytelling in general, and in terms of everything it's doing, Primal is one of the greatest experiences you're going to have with any sort of media this year. It's maybe the classical sense, maybe it's showing like what media and film and animation has always been able to do since the beginning of it, is just to tell stories with images, but it just does it so wonderfully and with such preciseness and such great direction. It's like appreciating one of the great animated works of my lifetime and just sitting back and going like, holy crap, that's how you do it. And I love the visceralness of it. I love the bloody disgustingness of it. I just love so much. I love the flow of it. It just flows in such a wonderful way. It's built so well. It's just, there's no real very much flaws in it. The only flaw, I guess, is that it's so short, but I kind of love it even for that. It just bursts out and doesn't really give a shit. It's just primal, and it's here to show you the bloody hard world that the prehistoric Earth was going to be, and doesn't even really want to hold back, because it's here right in front of you. It's here to experience in a way that cinema rarely asks you to do, because most cinema and most TV is a passive experience, and Primal just grabs you and throws you into the screen and probably gives you the most intensely beautiful, insane passive experience than you can ever ask TV or cinema to do. So if you have seen Primal and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.